And I think there's something about just being in any kind of creative field that that'll help you in comics, right? Like I'm a film school kid myself. That was my initial hope and dream. Um, yeah, and then comics, always a fan, right? Like that was the childhood thing, but I, again, never thought that was a way to go. It was always no, I'm gonna write a screenplay. I'm gonna be in L.A., right? That's my plan. It didn't pan out, but yeah, that was the idea, right? But it kind of translated to, well, comics are, I still get that visual medium. I can still tell that story, but I don't need millions of dollars or, 100 friends that are willing to give up all their weekends to make this story that may or may not happen, right? Like it's Roberto, me and you can put a
Oh man,
story together in an hour. So it's, yeah.
it didn't. Well, you're basically in the LA of Canada, right? Toronto,
Yeah, it's
close.
between us and Vancouver, I guess. We get a lot, like my wife's in the film industry, so she gets a lot of work in that herself. But yeah, didn't go that well for me. I I shot some hockey games, some as any
Nice.
good Canadian would. That was my I did that for a couple years. And then that faded from that world a bit. Yeah, got the boring full-time job.
Well,
That pays well and I'm very happy to
yeah.
have.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. If anybody's
Failed,
watching from there.
failed musician to failed filmmaker. I respect your journey,
Yes.
but we have come together
Fucking
to our
crazy.
storytelling medium.
Right? Yeah. It's yeah. It's just it's been interesting. There's been a lot of folks who we've talked to a couple of folks who are like actively working in film and that too, and they still found themselves drawn to comics just based on the, the expediency of it, that they can tell a story and it exists however quickly or artists can draw it, depending on, their capability to do it relatively fast or not. But
Right.
like a film can take years. This is done within, uh, days, months, weeks. Um, I
Yeah,
get
and
a
that
lot of
I always tell people that's if you're hesitant about getting into comics, that's one of the coolest parts is that like we're doing right now. I've done this before too with artists. Like we're at the bar, we're joking around. Hey, let's write a comic, and then hammer out a script, and it's done in a week or two. It's like it's cool. You can do that. You can be immediate, and you can people do the 24-hour comics, and those are super
Mhm.
cool to see, and stuff like you're doing here now. It's like that's one of the coolest parts because yeah, you don't. It's not like that in a ton of other creative mediums. So your music is like that too. If you just want to hammer something out live and play it, you can do it. And comics can be like that too. And the barrier to entry is very low, right? How do I break into comics? You make a comic, right? If you work hard enough and you put out a decent product, your product could be on the shelf right there next to the Amazing Spider-Man and all these other great books. It might not be in every store, and it might be a harder journey for you, but you can break into comics by just making a comic, and that's pretty cool to me.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? And even the barrier for a reader is a lot lower, right? Because I can throw you my latest novella and say, "Here you go. You want to read this?" And not unfortunately, most people, right, aren't going to be like, "I'll crack into this right now and I'll get back to you." But you give them a
Yeah,
comic,
stand here while I read it.
yeah, yeah, like it's not quite the same where you can hand someone a comic and be like, "Flip through it, see if it's for you," right? And then that's enough to at least be the hook that they're like, "Oh, this looks really cool," and then hopefully they go home and really absorb it. But yeah, like outside of the cover, you're not getting that with with prose or a film. It's going to take you months, and then they watch 3 minutes of it and
Yeah,
right, throw it away. So
dang.
yeah, it's just I don't know, such an interesting medium. It has so many advantages, although sometimes it has its challenges as well.
For sure, for sure. Well, I don't mean to cut off Robert's screen sharing, but I did find a one-page comic that I did about 15 years ago. If you want me to share it.
Oh yeah, yeah, let's do that. All right, we'll let Roberto drop his screen if he can.
And I turned over the art duties to the amazing Harry Moyer out of Pennsylvania. He and I again met on that message board back in the day and threw him this idea. And he made us a 1-page comic. If I can find the screen, where is it? There it is.
Oh
All
wow.
right, might be a little hard to see. Harry is amazing. We'll zoom in a little for you. Ooh,
That's
you
like
guys at home.
a half-page comic almost. That's impressive.
this is this is the 1-page walrus that we did for an anthology forever ago. Um, yeah, he was a very avant-garde type of artist, so I tried to come up with an idea that was like out of the norm for him, and he of course knocked it out of the park. And I said, we're gonna use the hours on a clock to tell the lifespan of our little chubby walrus friend here. And yeah, he did an awesome job for us.
Amazing. Yeah,
And
that's
it was in one of when I first started. Again, on that message board, they would talk a lot about um we have so many talented people here, and we want to put out an anthology, and nobody's been able to put it together. And I had done one single comic, and I was like, oh, I can handle that, no problem. I was naive enough to think I could wrangle a bunch of cats, and but we did it. There was about 20 of us who put out a 140-page anthology and
wow.
sold it online. And a lot of people, that was their first and only published work, and that was like a huge eye opener for me, like how excited people get to see their work in print, including me. I had done mini comics, like printing them yourself, but we got it professionally printed, and it was super cool. And we did 2 other volumes after that. And I've done probably a dozen anthologies at this point. And I just love that process, how excited people get, again, to see their stories in print or to make stories with you, and how appreciative they are. Um, it's something I always like to do every couple of years to kind of keep me energized with the medium, and just, especially again, when people have never been published before, it's just, exciting to see.
Yeah, for sure. That's something, when you talk about the younger set that maybe can't afford an artist and that, it's anthologies are a great inroad to that, right? Like it's a great way to get yourself published and to see to have something to show people, right? Um, yeah, it's that's awesome though. I really like that one. That was very different from what I've seen out there. Really cool. Roberto, if you could reshare your screen when you get a chance.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no worries. We can't hear you.
He knows that.
We can't hear you and we can't see you. Okay, we can see this.
There it is.
I'm gonna do the outro for you again. Um, we've had no luck with Roberto's audio, but fortunately we can see his art, which is key. Um, so anyway, yeah, anthologies have been interesting. There was a period there where they looked like they weren't going to, like people were almost sick of it on Kickstarter. There's like
Yeah.
brief period. It seems like that's past. Anthologies are doing well again. I think during the pandemic they were like having a bit of a boom, and then people just like fell off entirely. Um,
Yeah, I think everything was, everybody was kind of trying to, like myself, although I will admit I planned it before the pandemic hit. And of course, when we were ready to release our first book, it was like right as, everything was going down. So a great time to start a new company. But yeah, there was a boom for a lot of people, right? A
yep.
lot of us, both people were at home, and they were, watching online more, and interacting with people that way was huge around that time, obviously. And now, partly because, yeah, people kind of did that, right? And most of the people who maybe weren't like longtime fans, kind of supported, people here and there, and then stepped away.
Mm-hmm.
But then, economic times are hard for a lot of people too. So I just feel like this year was really particularly one of the hardest I've seen in my 15 years of doing it.
Yeah, it's there's I want to say it's picking up, but it I don't know. Maybe I'm just being optimistic. it yeah, it's been a rough year. Like I said, mentioned, even the shows have been less attended than usual. But I don't know. There seems to be an excitement that is coming back, so I'm hoping that translates to a good 2025. Um, but 2024 was certainly, a little bit of a down year for for comics in general. At least the first portion. But
Yeah. My genius planning, I picked 2020 to come back and publish 3 books.
Nice.
I picked 2024 as the first year to like go all in on the company and try and do 5 new books and do my first, or actually it was our second ever convention, which was also a failure in 2024. So yeah, it was not a good decision making year, but
Sure.
I made it through. So
Yeah, decision making maybe not. It's the prediction.
right,
That's where you got nailed.
right.
I mean, you gotta, so you have to be willing to kind of put your foot on the gas here and there to get things going, right? So it sounds like you were doing the right thing. It just backfired a bit, right? But what can you
Yeah.
do? It happens. I mean, you're still here. You're still going strong. You still have a whole host of campaigns planned and running right now. Um,
I don't know about strong, maybe stubborn is better the word, right? Now I'm gonna do it for spite.
yeah,
I'll show you all.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling. Yeah, well, this year for myself, this year being 2025. Again, we're in 2024 as we record this. Just full
Yeah, right.
disclosure, but 20,
Time warp.
yeah. So this year, 2025, yeah, I have, this is my like pedal to the metal year, and like I've gone ahead with a lot of work. So there's a lot of art that's already been bought and paid for and waiting released. And yeah, it's kind of like an all or nothing. Like last year was my like, I'm gonna do conventions, I'm gonna make myself known, put my face out there. This year's all or nothing.
Mhm.
And I'm, you know, my a little clammy about it, but
Yeah. That was me last year, but
yeah, you got to do it at some point, right? Like if you're gonna hit that next level, to start funding books to the point that they're funding themselves, you know, you have to, you almost have to have a cadence. You have to be there every other month, right? Um, yeah, so it's tough though.
yeah, that's the biggest thing. That's one of the other big things I tell peers is like they're like, "Well, I'm just not getting momentum," and it's like, how do you do it, John, or how does so and so do it? And some of it is, yeah, you have to keep it going. We all have our limits, and nobody's a machine, but even on those weeks you're not feeling into it, you got to do something to keep it progressing. You got to be present on social media. That's one of the biggest ways
Uh-huh.
to get the word out. You got to update that mailing list. All those things you don't want to do. I don't know how to imbue that into other people. You just have to kind of, again, it doesn't have to be 16-hour days on the weekends and grinding out these books. You just got to put in a little bit of time all the time,
Yeah.
regularly, and then you see the results. Because really, again, people are like, "Oh, you're so successful. I wish I could be like you." Well, we've had multiple failed projects, and we've been doing this for 15 years. So really, when I look at peers like Tom Hutchinson from Big Dog Inc., he and I started around the same time, and his career path was totally different. He was all in on his company. That's what he does now. That's his job. For me, it wasn't that way. So I can't look at him and be like, well, we've been doing it at the same time. Why don't I have, $15,000 Kickstarters, and why don't I? His path was different than mine. I can't. Of course, I want to take some of the things away from him, and he's awesome to share his knowledge with us, but it may not be applicable to where I'm at and what I can invest. Like I said, the name Part Time Comics was a little bit tongue in cheek in that I have to understand. I'm probably I'm not going to be published. I'm not going to write for Marvel. Probably I'm never going to win an Eisner. But what do I want to do with the 5 to 10 hours a week I spend doing this? And I feel like I'm in a good spot in putting out the books that I want to.
Yeah, and that's all you can ask for, right? I think it's realistic goals as well. It helps you kind of the you know
Yeah,
to because if you can only control what you can control. So if your goal is to write for Marvel, that's great,
absolutely.
but you're not in control of that, right? Like you could do everything
Right.
right, and it's still
And maybe it's the social worker in me, and I try to help people set realistic. I never would tell anybody, don't have your goal to be to write for Marvel. Don't. I would never.
yeah.
That it's your life if that's what you want to do. But if my goal right now is to be president of the United States, it's probably not going to happen.
There's only
But
one
if
at a
my goal
time.
is to work
Yeah,
right, and I'm probably not in that echelon. Um, but if my goal is to work in politics, then I can join the PTA or I can run for my local. If you set your goal to only be this one hyper specific thing, I want to play for the Chicago Bulls, and then you get drafted by the Knicks, do you quit? Like, no, you
yeah,
you know, um, you gotta set. And also, I tell people again, social work. setting yourself realistic goals doesn't mean you're giving up on the larger goal, but that people don't realize that keeps you going, right?
Hmm.
Like if my goal is to publish a trade paperback, I've done it and that made me excited and I got this huge box in the mail and I got to mail out hundreds of them. That was huge. But if I said that my only goal was, to write 50 issues of the series, then I'm missing some of the joy along the way, and I'm going to burn myself out if I'm only focused on. Yeah, I need to have 500 backers on Kickstarter. If I don't get there, well, no, you be appreciative of what you have and enjoy the steps. Enjoy conversations like this and going to conventions and meeting people. As we've said, those things are they're a huge part. And if you're only focused on just this one, most likely unattainable goal, because just like being president, only so many people get to write Amazing Spider-Man in their life.
Hmm.
Um, you're just going to miss so much along the way, and it's just going to lead to you quitting probably.
Yeah, exactly. You need wins along the path, right? If the only win that you're allowing yourself is the end goal, then yeah, you're setting yourself up for failure because everything is going to feel like pain on the way there, right?
Right.
It's you gotta appreciate, and you're gonna miss out on all the fun, right? Like most of the fun. Again, we talked about the conventions. Most of the fun at conventions, you're there to not only cover tables but to make a profit, realistically, right? But most of the fun comes from talking with with your fellow creators and talking with fans, and just being there, present in the moment, and enjoying that. And I can't say that I've always been that person. Sometimes I'm grumbling because
Right. That's
nobody
true too.
showed up, and and it's now been 2 days, and still there's not many people walking by the table. Like I've been that guy, but I usually walk out
Yeah.
of these cons pretty happy that I was
Yeah.
gone at all, right?
Well, that's good. And yeah, we're all gonna have those days where we need to lick our wounds, and your emotions are your emotions. I'm not gonna begrudge any one of that. You just gotta try not to let it keep you down. Like I, I'm not trying to oversell it. That doing the convention last year was a huge mistake. We lost a lot of money.
Mhm.
It slowed down everything because that was the little bit in the pot that we had, and I for a month I moped quite a bit. If anybody even said a letter that was in the title of the convention or anything, I was
Yep.
I could feel my blood boiling because I was just so disappointed that I put on this awesome show with my friends in the community. Of course, everyone's going to want to come to see that, but I didn't recognize in myself. I'm not a show promoter.
Mm.
People don't just come to things anymore because you post it on social media and they're on your mailing list. Half the people on your mailing list are 5,000 miles away. There was a whole bunch of factors that led in, and I got the booked the venue late, and I kind of rushed it. I should have said no. Let's put it off till 2025. I'm not ready. I need a dedicated team to do X, Y, and Z because I can't do it all. All those things I learned. So once I got out of the feeling sorry for myself phase, I take it as a learning experience. And if I do take the chance again, of course, now I'm smarter for it. But that was a tough one. But yeah, we're all going to have those moments where we need to lick our wounds and step back. But hopefully those are few and far between. You can kind of enjoy the ride along the way.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, exactly. When you have it's all expectations, right? You can only be disappointed based on your expectations. Some are reasonable, like if you're putting on a convention, you hope people show up. That's you know, that's a very reasonable expectation. And if you don't meet that, I could totally get being sour about it. But, there's other things that you can certainly um people put a bit too much value on. Again, like backer counts and that, right?
Yeah,
Like if
that's a
you're
huge one.
coming out with a product at the end of a campaign, that's a success. Maybe it's not the success you wanted it to be. And I've been there too, where it's like, yeah, I set my goal and then there was the real goal that I wanted to hit and I didn't hit that one that I didn't share with anyone. And
Mhm.
right, like I've certainly been there. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, you know, uh, the thing you always hear is you might be upset about your back account, but try to imagine all those people in a room, right? And if you're doing any more than like 20 people, you fill the room. And it's 20
Yeah,
people that came out from wherever they came out from to support you. That's huge. And then the bigger that number gets, obviously, the more exciting that gets. But it doesn't have to be a very big number for it to be impressive, right? Like the fact that,
absolutely.
you're relatively unknown to the world. We're not all Scott Snyder and whatever that can put something up and there's immediately going to be fans lined up for it. The fact that you can bring anyone out, and if you can bring them out multiple times, like you're winning, right? Like it's you just hope that it grows every time. And if not, reassess and look at why.
Yeah,
But yeah,
There you go. You got to reassess, see where I'm at. Where do I go from here?
right.
But you're right. I do the same thing, and people tell me that that's probably a detriment. I usually set the goal like 20% less than what I really need,
Hmm.
um, in hopes it'll go over, just so we'll kind of hit that minimum and not have to, scramble around and relaunch or anything. So it's been a decent model for me. But yeah, there's always that. And then then it's like, okay, we didn't reach the real goal. What do we need to do on the back end, to make it even as best as we can?
Yep. Yeah.
But that's something else. Like people ask me, what point do you need to get to where you'd have other people ship your Kickstarters? I mean, it would have to be a pretty large goal. First off, because I have so many products at this point, which again, how could I not be proud of that, right? My name's on 25 different books and all these different stickers and products. That's really cool, right? I should always be excited about that. But then it's like packing the orders for me is like fun because
Hmm.
you see the names, like you said, that come back and you're like, holy shit, this guy's backed like 17 of my Kickstarters. And like, I got to put, a handwritten note to him or something, I still enjoy that part of it. It's just like, you're a cool little community that supports you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do say if I get over like 300 backers one day, I may hand it off to like a fulfillment company because maybe, but we'll see.
Yeah. It's all about scale, right? Like if you're hitting certain number, it stops being fun and it starts being a job. Right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm the same. I enjoy even the just packing of envelopes, but then there's inevitably the one or two that come back and they're like, "Hey, mine was folded when it arrived to me," or right, or didn't make it at all, or who knows. Um,
Yeah.
those are
I
less
had one recently that was a year
no,
ago. It was sent and it came back from Israel. And I contacted the backer. I'm like, why didn't you contact me?
yeah,
That hadn't got there. It was sitting at the post office. They said it was there. He's like, our post office is terrible. And I can imagine it's not,
sure. Right now, it's probably not.
it's pretty rough.
Yeah,
But he was very about it. He's like, I want to order the next book anyway. Just hold it for that. We'll work it out. And he's super nice. And
nice.
he's backed us so many times that I was wondering why he didn't come back for the new issue. But maybe he was like, hey man, he stiffed me on the last
Yeah,
book. But so
he's not getting anything
I
more
should have
from me.
probably checked
Yeah,
and been like, why didn't this package get there? I couldn't believe it. And it actually came back in decent shape. So I was impressed by that part.
that is impressive. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. My last one, I had a couple that were severely bent. They sent me photos, which was I didn't ask for them. I just like like look.
My worst one was I got someone with a open envelope, empty.
No.
They delivered them the empty envelope. How do you even dispute that, right? It was empty. No, you opened it.
Oh
And then we got one that was like, I don't know what the hell this liquid was, like this yellow liquid, like toxic waste was poured on it. And I was like, don't touch it. Just send me a picture.
yeah.
And luckily some of them were in bags, so that it didn't ruin all of them. But I'm like, don't, I'll just send you, don't deal
Just
with
don't
that.
worry about it. Yep. That's why we overprint.
And they actually did reimburse me for that one. He took good pictures, so
Nice.
that helped. But yeah, I've had some horror stories, and that is the worst part, right? It's like I love cutting out the middleman. I'm not having to go through distribution and pay 20 to 30% for them to do it. But then those headaches,
Yep.
you did not enjoy that part. It's always like one per campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's always one or two, and you're kind of well, with like overlapping campaigns and stuff. It's like fulfillment is done. Now I'm, resetting, and now I'm thinking of this next
Don't
one.
ask me about that book. That book doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
right. I'm on to the
Not
next.
going back.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you get a couple. Hey, uh, that or people are late to fill out their surveys. That's not the same one.
Oh God,
Yeah, or it's
I
like
get
three
some like
months later.
a year later.
Yeah,
Or a year, yeah. And you got to ask backer kit or Kickstarter for access to it because it's been so
oh,
long.
that's right. Yes, yes. It's like, hey,
Can
I
I
need
have
that
access
address
to the
again.
person who just filled out their survey?
Yeah, yeah. So that's always fun. Because you don't want to be that guy that's harassing people for their address. It's like, hey man, if you don't want it, I don't
Yeah.
have to send it. But maybe if you do want
I
it,
feel like I always send that closure update.
yeah,
All books are fulfilled and except for the 3 people who didn't,
yeah. Hey, you
like,
guys,
bless
publicly
their hearts.
embarrassing you.
At least they supported. Yeah.
Yes,
I should probably start putting their names in it, and then they'll be like, "Oh shit, that's me."
yeah, maybe.
And you contact them individually too. You contact them through email. It's like,
Yeah,
oh
and
man.
they just don't. They're like, oh, whoops.
Although I'm like that though too. I probably have some that was never delivered that I never followed up on.
Yeah, maybe. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Should probably go check that.
I'm usually pretty good about the surveys, but I'm not great about following up after the fact. So I usually get like mystery mail where I'm like, oh yeah,
Hooray.
I backed this months ago. But yeah. So yeah, you were mentioning you get stuff done, at least written ahead of time. Like when somebody's when the campaign closes, how close to done are your books?
Typically 50%.
Okay.
In the past, I definitely wanted them finished, but again, with budgets and stuff like that now, I've gotten a little bit less of that because I always want to give something to artists to get started. I don't always have the full amount for the book, so I do rely on the funds from the Kickstarter to finish the payments. So yeah, usually about 50%.
Right on. Yeah, I've well, if you're lettering yourself too, I that's usually my hang up is because it's on me. So so of course, setting your own deadlines is interesting at
Yep,
times. So lettering,
I've
I
done that many times. Like, oh crap, I have 20 pages left to letter in this book. What was I
right
thinking?
the
I'm
first
supposed to
I
go to
was
print in 2 days.
right. You start with the fun one,
Yep.
and then the rest get tedious, and then okay, well,
I try to do it as pages come in so I don't forget, but it inevitably happens.
life happens. Yeah,
Like, oh,
full
why
time
did I do this
job,
to myself?
all that stuff. Yeah,
It's all on me. And I often editing dialogue as it's going out the door as I like it, so that's a real bad habit to get into.
likewise.
Then you get the proof back and then you realize here's a typo and then you
If
gotta,
you're
damn it.
lucky, you notice it in the proof. If you're
Yeah,
unlucky,
if
you'll
you're lucky.
notice
Yeah.
it in the final. I've done that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just happened to me recently.
Yeah, right. It's bound to happen. I've done it once in the dialogue, and I've done it twice in an ad in the back. Which the ad in the back, I'm not
Oh,
heartbroken about. I don't think anybody's actually even looking at it. But the
right.
but the dialogue really irked me. That one was
Yeah, it gets you.
it was a backer who was immediately like, "Hey, you missed that." It was no,
It was on purpose.
yeah, that right. It's an accent.
It's dialect.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
it was an
dialect.
accent. What do you mean? No, I
I had one happen though, in my defense. The last one that happened was in an anthology that for once I wasn't editing, so damn it, it's on them. They were supposed to check my shit.
well, so I same excuse. I I blame the editor. Sure, it was me tinkering with the lettering last
It
second,
was
but
you,
I
yeah,
still
right.
blame the editor. Uh, well, it was me. But, yeah, leaving lettering for the last minute is, not recommended. But that's usually what I've hung up on. Colors, everybody's good. Everything would be
Mhm.
locked if it weren't for me. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's usually my I try to get everything done before, the funds are delivered. That's usually my, like it has to be
Yeah.
locked so that I can just funds come and it goes to the printer, right? That's the ideal. There's doesn't always go that way, but as close as possible. Um, the big thing is that the art is done right because that's what's going to take the longest. So, and then God forbid someone gets sick, someone is unavailable, somebody gets a big
Right.
job that isn't your small indie book, you know,
Right?
and that
That
it's like, hey man,
yeah,
got to
I'm
pay the
out.
bills first, right? So
And I have to say if I leave any legacy behind, it's again about 3 dozen books now at this point. We have never failed to deliver on a book ever in any campaign. We had one that was, delayed like a year for the same reason you said, person out of work, whatever, things going on. But really most of ours, we hit or exceed the estimated date. So I'm very proud of that. I've worked with some awesome, and a lot of times that's because I work with people I know that I've met through the industry that I've known for a while. So I know they're going to be reliable and there's a connection between us. But, I've certainly worked with other people for hire or I didn't know well. And we've been able to make it happen each time.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's all reputation based anyway, right? Like, so I don't think anybody's looking to burn their reputation because like to just get paid and run away with like uncompleted pages. Life happens. Sometimes things happen where people drop off for whatever reason. But knock on wood, have been lucky thus far in that regard. But
Yeah, I had that happen with one person. I pay them for 4 pages. It was a 12 page. That was during the pandemic.
yeah,
Completely understood. I did try to check in with them a couple years later to see if they wanted to get back to it. So I haven't had, and that one luckily wasn't. I hadn't kickstarted that or launched it or anything. So I was fortunate in that regard.
nice. Yeah, yeah, and I've certainly had things that fizzled before they got very far. Like there's been at least a couple artists that we were talking, going back and forth, and it's just like, okay, this isn't like we're having a hard time communicating already. Maybe let's not
Mhm.
introduce money into this conversation. Um, right?
Hey, that takes a strong person to do because I've definitely not walked away from those and felt like I came out with a product that neither one of us were not proud of, but not it wasn't as good as either of us if we had maybe recognized that early on, that we weren't gelling.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough, right? Like even myself, like the latest one was my wife saying, "Why are you still?" I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Like she needed to give me that nudge to say, if you're working this hard for it, it's probably not right. Um, so fortunately, I walked away from that one, but it's happened a couple times where yeah, I thought, okay, like I like this art, I like the, but it's just our way of working or communicating or something wasn't gelling. So yeah, don't be afraid to start over. I mean, it's tough. It's very tough when you've put all time into it, all this time and all this effort, but it won't get better. It will get worse the more especially now money's involved, and then suddenly the stress goes up with it, right? So
Now you're talking about marriage or what?
might as well be. Yeah. But that's what you got, right? Like you're pretty much in that scenario for
It's a,
3 4 months.
it's a creative marriage.
Yeah, right. Trying to birth something, to really belabor the metaphor there. But yeah, it's easier said than done when you're trying to establish a creative relationship, but you have to be realistic about it, right? Can go sour
Absolutely.
easily. But yeah, I've been mostly lucky, for like 90% lucky. Everyone I've worked with has been swell and talented and responsive and all that. So very few complaints. I'll never tell who the handful, or not even a handful, the few that didn't work out were. Um,
Name names,
yeah,
blast
right.
them right now.
I haven't been like truly burnt. That's the good thing. Like again, everybody's dealing with reputation and like dealing on their reputation. So I don't think anybody. Again, there's always. I'm sure there's always going to be one or two, right, that are just trying to get a quick
Oh
buck
man,
here or there.
I've heard
Yeah, like
awful stories.
likewise. Like I've heard of that,
I
and they
feel bad.
they always blame themselves, right? They're always like, well,
Most of the time.
yeah, right,
I had one guy quit. He's like, "Well, it's my fault." I'm like, "No, you kinda need to go to that person and be like, 'You owe me the money back.
yeah,
I
right.
know you already spent it, but'"
They're like, I knew they
Oh,
were
it's so
working
tough
for
though.
some weird studio, and I still like did it, and
Oh, jeez.
all kinds of stories like that.
And that's how so many of our peers end up in these bad contracts because they you'd start thinking people think like you that they have the best intentions going into everything, and that's just I do think our industry by and large is filled with people who do, but there are a certain percentage that do not
Yeah,
in any walk of life, but especially in the creative field, and they are there to take advantage of you. And you gotta put your excitement aside. And I've been in that position only a few times where I was offered a contract that had extremely predatory language. And fortunately, I had peers that I asked to look at it, and they were like, "Oh hell no!
yeah,
If they're not even budging on these two things you're asking them for, what's the benefit to you?" And luckily, I walked away. And then people tell me years later, "Oh, I had a horrible experience with them." So having people around you that can help you see what you're not seeing
yeah.
helps. But yeah, you can't assume that people have the best intentions for you. It's just unfortunately that's the case a lot in our, especially in our industry.
Yep, yeah. It's people. We're all kind of vulnerable in the way that we're trying to create something. It's like something that we're all um unsure about to begin with. So getting any kind of
Excited and
validation.
passionate and eager. Yeah, so then you get that validation, and then that warms you up a little bit, and then yeah, you're not seeing straight now because now you're looking at it like, oh, what could be all these exciting things that could be? I finally reaching my goal, and I totally get that. I was very close to being like, fuck it, let's do it. And luckily, co-creator stepped in and said, I've been there before. This is not what you think, and if they're not willing to give us X, Y, and Z, we'll just walk away. We have a good crowdfunding thing going. Why does it matter?
Yeah,
And they were totally right. It's still a goal of mine, but it's become much lesser, because again, what can they really offer us at this point, that we can't do ourselves you know,
yeah,
obviously if it was like Dark Horse or something, okay, great. They've got worldwide distribution and they're a huge name and all that,
sure.
but it's going to take a lot to pull me away from having total control over
Well, this is the thing, right?
over my properties.
It's like you're the master of your domain. Like you can, if you decide, you know what, I want to do extra variant covers. I want to do a metal cover. You don't have to tell
Yeah,
anyone on
that's what
it.
I
You
did.
just go do it, right?
I was like, "Oh crap! I wrote myself into a corner here. This issue's got to be 4 pages longer. That's approved."
right?
Oh, this series is 4 issues instead of 3. That's an approval, even though that was probably a bad choice. But
What? Oh goodness. You actually now I'm thinking about did you do a campaign with 2 books at one point? I think you did, right?
I've done I've done 2 multiple times and 3. I'll never do 3 again.
That's
That
right.
was too
That's
many.
3. Okay, yes. Because I think we're
Triple
in the
threat.
Instagram chat together and you were
Yep.
mentioning that one. That's right. Yes. That was wild. That was I have no idea how you managed that, but
Yeah, that was a tough one. Luckily, one was with again my longtime collaborator Bob Gar. He was doing the art for free on that one.
nice.
So,
Okay.
the overhead wasn't that much, so I knew, whatever the goal ended up meeting, we just wanted to get them into print. So,
Sure, sure. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know.
And then the other two were like mini comics, so they were in a similar vein. I felt like that one went pretty well. And then I did one where I was like, okay, Drumsticks of Doom is doing great. The other series, Depowered, is not as great. Maybe I can get some excitement for it. And that one had okay results. I felt like we brought in some new readers by doing it that way. Yeah, it's definitely not easy and not something I'd recommend all the time. If you do it, they should probably be very close in theme. Like I was part of a campaign for a music anthology that did 2 volumes at once. That was super cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I'll definitely be sticking to the solo because you just understand that. Although we do have a ton of backers who cross all products, I will say that I have several backers who I'm very grateful for. We'll just back pretty much anything we put out, which is so amazing. But that's why I've started to offer like a subscription plan shipping. Like
Nice.
they can do something through the Kickstarter to let me know to hold it, and they really appreciate that. Only 4 or 5 people might take advantage, but that's you know $7-8 per Kickstarter they're saving. I mean, I feel like people really appreciate that kind of stuff because that's how I always wanted to be. Like Retrofit Comics and Birdcage Bottom Books were a big inspiration to me. They were independent labels, and they would do that every year. They'd be like, subscription plan at the beginning of the year. Who wants all our books this year? And man, they would get so many backers, and I just really wanted to kind of get to that point with Part Time Comics where 50 people would just kind of back all our books, and then we could kind of figure it out from there. But I haven't figured out a way to package it up because if I do it through the website, like nobody, it's like crickets.
Hmm.
But if I do it through Kickstarter, I at least get 100 backers.
Yeah, yeah.
I just can't get anybody to go to the darn site and just click, I want your books there. It's like Kickstarter gets them excited.
Yeah, it's that whole ecosystem. Same experience. I got the website and I've done okay through the website. Kickstarter's like exponentially better, like in
Right.
getting the word out for things. But yeah,
People
you're limited.
love the excitement.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. But you're limited in how many campaigns you can do in a row and all that. So there's pluses and minuses, but where I always say, like, you can go to my website and everything is there, and yet folks will still wait for the next Kickstarter to pick up something as an
Mhm.
add-on. I guess it's just like a trust thing. I don't know. I don't know what the difference
Yeah.
is, but
That was another thing we did. We did a backer kit and I put the new books on there that were going to be in the next Kickstarter. And we got like 17 orders. That was cool.
nice.
So that was decent. But yeah, and then it was like, all right, I guess I still have to launch a Kickstarter for these books. Damn
Yeah,
it.
like you still have to,
Why couldn't you all just back them now?
right? It's there. Do you want it? I've had
Yeah.
folks in person. And I say, I have the book here. Are you interested? They're like, no, I'll wait. Okay. You want me to ship it to you? Cool. That'll work.
They like getting mail. It's exciting.
Yeah, maybe.
I like getting mail.
When it's in one piece, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Going back in time, our postal strike just ended here in Canada. That was a big thing. Um, so no mail is going, and that was very frustrating. Um, but
Yeah, I heard that's terrible.
yeah, it's been a long time coming, and it's still not even done. And it won't be when this
Oof.
airs. It'll still be months from being complete. But yeah, shipping has been it's so being in Canada. Getting anything from you guys, uh, my back American campaigns, we get nailed on the shipping. I don't understand it. Um, it's it's much cheaper for me to ship to the US, even than it is to
I
ship
know. I have
in
buddies
Canada.
who've told me that. I'm like, it doesn't make any damn sense.
It's insane.
Cheap ass USPS.
Yeah, like I don't get it. I think the trick here is like we have shipping companies that will load a truck, drive over the border and ship from there. So they do everything within the US Postal Service. But the USPS doesn't have a likewise. They do
Mm.
through the mail and therefore they will charge you appropriately. Um,
I tell you, they've started to do that here with international, where they'll bulk them together and
nice.
ship them somewhere and then unpack them there. Um, I use a site for that, so hopefully they'll get on that with Canada.
Amazing. Yeah, that would be great. I mean, it's like I mentioned, for me, it's anywhere from 60 to 90% of the backers are from the US. So if I didn't have a service like that, like if I was just paying the Canada Post rate to get things to the US, it would be impossible, right? Like shipping would be 30, $40. Where now it's $6 to $7 Canadian, which is like, a button in
That's the
American
same as
dollars.
it is here.
Yeah.
That's so weird, yeah, 'cause to just me to ship it to you would be like 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah,
This
it's
this
bananas,
economy is very strange to me.
right? I don't.
Well, you in that chat group we're in, you gotta con some American guys to ship your books from down here or something.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, well, again, it's easy for me to ship to the US. It's the other way around that seems to be
Right.
hard. I need someone
Gotcha.
to collect all my books that I'm ordering and
Oh, there you go.
yeah.
There you
I mean, there are services that'll do
do it.
that too. The same services that'll ship to the US will
Oh,
hold
nice.
stuff and bring it over all at once. So
Hmm.
it's a possibility. But even just seeing the shipping rates on Kickstarter itself, like, yeah, it's I don't know. The way I've gone is all in shipping myself, where I find folks are much more eager to back, even if you have a much higher price, because I've baked it in. I'm not hiding it. Like I'm just saying, my book that would normally be 10 Canadian dollars is 20, and folks seem to be more into that than saying this is my $10 book and I'm going to charge you $10 for shipping. It's the exact same thing with the same result, and yet I seem to do better when I just say, here's the
Yep,
price, click checkout, and you know what you're getting charged, right?
absolutely. I've had tons of people tell me that. I haven't done it yet, but yeah, it is a weird phenomenon.
It's bizarre, yeah, and I'm not, again, being totally transparent. I'm being totally transparent
Mhm.
about it. I'm saying, "Look, you're still paying shipping, right?" I'm estimating it, as best I can, and when you estimate it, you're probably overestimating to make sure that you don't get burnt, but I'm doing my best to guess here, and you're gonna pay the inflated rate, and people go for it. Um, yeah, it's weird. It's weird, but it works. So I recommend all in shipping seems to be the way to go. Even with all the tools that you can break out shipping prices and that, people just seem to want, like, they just don't want to get jerked around with all these extra charges that they see. They just want to know how much upfront,
Yep.
right?
If I'm clicking on this, yeah, I get you.
Yeah, it's like just
And the worst is when you get it when they're like, "We'll do the shipping afterwards," and you get hit with that. You're
oh,
like, "Never
that
again."
just happened to me. I didn't realize I backed
Yeah.
something that had
Yep.
that.
Happened to me twice this year, and I was like, "Never again.
Right? Well, yeah, and the book
I'm
is
out."
$15 and the shipping's 25, and it's like, "Well, had I known."
Ugh, it was brutal.
Right? Had I known, maybe I wouldn't it would've gone digital for that one. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, and then like you said, now it's like, well, the next one, I'm gonna take a second look before I back it because that didn't feel, you know, especially when you don't provide a shipping table. It's just, "We're gonna charge you later," and you don't know what that price is going to be. Um Like, I do not recommend going that way. That's a good way to just burn backers, right? That's like, "Hey, surprise amount coming later." Um,
Surprise. That's the worst. Don't do that, people.
yeah.
I know the temptation. I know it's hard. Shipping prices change. Figure it out. Find a way.
Yeah, like, if you have to add a buck or 2 to the shipping amount, right? Like, you're better off doing that than surprising someone with a secondary bill for something the excitement's gone by then, right? Like, by the time that second bill for the shipping comes, like, you've forgotten you've backed this thing, you know? And now it's like, "Hey, do you want the thing you already paid for? Because we're not giving you a refund."
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, well, if I don't wanna just donate the first half of the money I gave you. So, it's yeah, not not recommended.
Yeah. I've done group shipping together. I've contacted people, "Hey, I just happened to notice that you backed and I haven't shipped last Kickstarter. Can I hold it?" I've done pick it up in person and I'll refund your money.
Mhm.
You know, make it work for your backers.
Well, this is the thing,
They're keeping you in business.
right? Like the key thing is to get the comics in people's hands, right? Like that's what you want.
Yeah,
That should be the focus. I know for some it's just to sell or whatever, but
yeah.
realistically, your focus should be getting the book in people's hands.
Right, because I'm telling you all these amazing tips and this moral high ground you should take, and I'm also going broke over here, so maybe I'm not the best person to
I think we all are.
my last 5 Kickstarters were in the negative.
Yes, likewise. I think that's
So,
just how it works, right? Like,
maybe I will rip people off.
yeah,
$100 for shipping. Screw you all.
I think that's just telling you the reality of this whole business, right? It's we're all kind of taking a huge risk doing this. So that's just the
It's
indie
definitely
side
for
of
the
things.
love of the game
Yeah,
and, the stories you make along the way and the friends you make and at the end of the day, even if Drumsticks of Doom doesn't sell 1,000 copies an issue and sell out of all the stuffed animals and everything, it's like Dan and I are friends and we made this awesome thing and we made a little bit of money and it hopefully made his life and his family a little better, and we have this cool product at the end that we can always look back on. So maybe I'm just an old nostalgic old man.
all right. So we're gonna do something a little different this time. We haven't finished the page, but we've run out of time, unfortunately. So if you want to see the end of this page, we're gonna work on it offline and we're gonna post it on our website. That's instantInkPodcast.xyz. Again, Instant Ink Podcast
Nice.
XYZ. You're Canadian. We'll have the completed page, lettering and all there. We're so close to done, but again, we got two into our conversation and we didn't get to finish it today. So with that, we're gonna say goodbye, and we're gonna start by saying goodbye to John. John, let everybody know what you're doing, what you're up to, all that cool stuff.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. I'm Jon Westhoff. I'm the letterer, writer, and publisher for Part Time Comics. That's Part Time Comics with an X on all social media. It's really just a warehouse for stories I want to tell with the people I've met around the world. So I am the main writer or a huge part of all the books that we put out. So if you don't like them, I'll take it personally. But no, we've got 5 books coming out next year, three ongoing series, one shot. We're doing a lot next year. So again, if you find us on social media or you want to go to linktree/part-time comics with an X, engage with us in any way you want to. You can see our store there, social medias, our Substack is there. Pick the way you want to engage with us. And if you can't back the books, we understand times are tough. The shares really do help though. So if you see us bouncing around, you're like, oh, I remember that idiot talking on that show. Click the share real quick. It really helps. It may even help more than the actual backing because these days everything is just squashed so much on social media. It really helps us get the word out, and that's what this is all about. Spreading the books, spreading the books around the world. So we would really appreciate the shares and support.
Right on. And yeah, you're a wonderful guest, very easy to talk to. So hope for all the success with all your current and future campaigns. Yeah, and with that, Roberto, let them know who you are, what you're up to.
I want to say, Sean, too, it was a pleasure to have you, and I learned a lot. I felt like I was listening to a podcast instead of being part of one.
You're doing it right. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that's due to my mic problems, but okay, you can find me at robertobecavaillustration.com, and I'm the creator of Voyager, so you can check that out too in my different social media.
Wonderful. And I'm Adriano. You can find me at Pesto Comics on everything online. PestoComics.com is the website. And most importantly, Instant Ink Podcast.xyz or XYZ, depending where you're from. And at Instant Ink Podcast on all the socials as well. Yeah, be sure to like, follow, share, most importantly, and all that. And yeah, go there to see this completed page. It will be completed by the time it gets posted. And once again, thank you very much. And we'll talk to you next time. Have a good one. Thanks.